You're listening to the Boss Lady Generation podcast with Elle Westley. The Boss Lady Generation community is a group of worldwide women who have made a decision to take charge of their lives and be their own boss. Our goal is to empower women entrepreneurs of all ages to take action and pursue their dreams on their own terms. For more information and to join Boss Lady Generation for free, go to bossladygeneration.com to sign up now. And now, on with the show. Hey, Boss Ladies, this is Elle Westley. You're listening to the Boss Lady Generation podcast. This is episode number 5, and my guest this week is a fellow voiceover artist, co-author of a popular financial blog, and author of the book One Bed, One Bank Account. Please welcome my guest, Carrie Olsen. Hi, Carrie. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Elle. Thanks for having me.
So I'm so excited to have you here because us voiceover people need to stick together.
Yeah.
So tell me how you got started as a voiceover artist. You've only been doing this for a short time, but you've had some major success, right?
Yeah, I've only been doing it full time for a little over a year. And prior to that, I did it kind of part-time while I was still working my corporate job for a few months and was able to replace my day job income pretty quickly. So I was able to move into full-time voiceover work. But before that, I was actually working in e-learning. So I was creating online courses. And so I would get to narrate some of my own courses. But through that narration, I didn't realize that voiceover was an industry in and of itself. I was just doing part of my job. So I kind of had some experience with narrating things before, and then also I've been podcasting for years. So I am new to voiceover as an industry in and of itself, but I've been behind a microphone for a while. So that was kind of my entry point.
Well, it's actually really exciting to hear of all your success, and you actually have some commercials starting to air on television next week, right?
Yes, I do.
I got an email from you, so I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, I was wondering how you knew. Yeah, so that'll be fun. I haven't told anyone what the company is yet, but I'd love to update you later if you don't see them.
Yeah, well, we'll be listening for your voice on TV. I think it's fair to say that you've had some things going right for you, and you've definitely that have helped your trajectory of success in the VO world. So tell us about what it took for you to start out and actually go to that full-time income.
So actually, the way that I first learned, I told you that I was, doing things that were like voiceover, but not quite. And how I discovered voiceover was actually through another podcast. So I was commuting to work. I just had my daughter and gotten off of maternity leave, and actually was looking for something that I could do from home. And driving to work, I was listening to a podcast I'd never listened to before, and the episode was an interview of another voice actor. And at the end, she said that she gives private lessons, and I thought, that sounds awesome. I called her up and started getting lessons from her. Her name is Olsen. She's in LA, and she's amazing. She's been in the industry for about 20 years. And so she kind of gave me a starting place and some advice, and I started auditioning on pay-to-play sites, which are sites that you pay money to be a member of, and then they send you auditions that match your voice profile. And pretty early on, I kept getting regular lessons from Allison, and I started getting some likes on my auditions, and then eventually I got a job. And so within just a few weeks, I booked several jobs that way, and it just so happened that the third job I ever booked was a national radio campaign. So this was a job that, it was absolutely insane, made $18,000 off of this job over the next few months. And so this is brand new.
That's amazing.
Brand new voice actor. Yeah, it's pretty insane. So that was my entry point. So as you can imagine, at that point, my husband and I were like, there's something to this voiceover thing. So let's look into, transitioning you into that full time.
Wow, that is so exciting. I actually, for myself, I had a producer friend that just needed me to voice over a television commercial, and I didn't even know it. He kind of tricked me, and he says, come here, and I just need you to speak into this microphone and say this 3 words, I'm like, okay, I thought I was just doing a test for him or something, and then later on I saw it on TV, and I was like, I remember recording this for you, so yeah, it was, and then he sent me a copy of it. I'm like, okay, that was free. That was free for you. You're welcome.
What? That's weird. That's shady.
I know. It was kind of shady, but he was a friend at the time. So, but, I didn't even consider it back then as, something that I could do. And I actually didn't consider it myself until people started telling me, oh, you should do that. You have a really good voice. So did you
Hmm.
ever have people suggesting that to you?
A little bit. I remember one specific friend who just said that I had a really nice tone to my voice, but I never thought anything of it. And, I didn't know that there was an industry that you could make money off of just by having a nice voice. Now, I know that that's not all that's involved,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like, when you hear that, I wasn't like, oh, I should try to monetize that. It was just kind of like a compliment, like any other, oh,
Yeah.
thanks, I guess. But um, so yeah,
That's
it was a big surprise to me just to hear that you could make a living reading into a microphone.
Yeah, I think it's like something people are kind of surprised about. I had one friend say, I didn't even know that that was a thing. And I'm like, yeah, you can actually make money doing that. But the best thing is, I think voiceover has evolved to where you don't have to go into a studio to record now. You can actually set up and have your at home studio, make money from home, send it all through your computer, and you probably rarely, if ever, have to go into an actual studio.
Yeah, and that's the really cool thing. I think especially for beginning voice actors, if you're concerned about, well, I don't live in a big city, I don't know any, producers, or I don't know what about recording studios, if you can get the equipment, which now you can get really good equipment for inexpensive, and then get just a recording space in your house, which could be a closet, just something that has a good sound to it, you can definitely run your entire business and never leave your house if that's
Yeah.
appealing to you.
Yeah, that's the internet.
Yeah,
What would we
absolutely.
do without it? So, as an entrepreneur, there's so much more than just focusing on your voiceover work. There's things like writing email campaigns and launching your programs, updating websites, social media, and all kinds of online and obviously offline marketing. And it can feel very overwhelming to those of us who run it all on our own. And there's many that do. So, how do you maintain focus on your craft when there's so much busy work and noise to filter through?
It's really, really hard. I'll be honest about that. And I'm still at the beginning of my career as a voice actor, and even as, I'm doing, you mentioned launching a program in my site and my, email campaigns and things like that. I'm still at the beginning stages of all of those things. So it's kind of that growth period where there's a ton to do, and I'm at the point now where I could use help. I could get help, and I even reached out to you a few months ago,
Yeah.
because I was just feeling so overwhelmed. But it's hard to get over that hump of, okay, I'm going to commit to getting someone to help me. But I think that is the next step, is really trying to figure out what that looks like to have a team. So you caught me at an interesting time, because I'm still in those beginning stages where I am. I mean, you could ask my husband. I'm overwhelmed almost every day, so
Mhm.
I'm not much help to give advice on how to keep focus, because right now it
It's
is,
everywhere.
it's a lot. Yeah.
Mhm.
But hopefully in the next few months here we'll be able to get some things rolling where I can kind of step back and start to focus on the things that I do well more, and have some other people come in and fill in those areas that kind of anyone could do.
Yeah. So, how do you deal with a feast or famine job? It doesn't sound like you're in a famine right now, but we don't really control who books us and when they book us, and that can cause a lot of financial pressure. So, how do you handle slow periods in your business?
It's rough. I think that one of the cool things about voiceover, or even just being self-employed, period, and being an entrepreneur, is that during those slow periods, it gives you time to do those things that you should be doing regularly anyway, but you don't have the time to do it. So I try to take advantage of them, specifically by doing marketing. I absolutely love marketing. Like I'll make a list of some of my dream clients who I want to work for, and then I will research them and craft specific emails or letters or phone calls to these people, and find out who the decision makers are, and present them with a demo and why I think we'd be a good fit, and asking if there's room on their roster, things like that. So I use my slow times to do things like that, which doesn't pay off immediately usually, but I actually got to work for Disney World over the last few months because of a slow time, and I decided to reach out and find who does their online training. And it took a couple months, but they ended up asking me to narrate some work for them.
Oh,
And so
that's
I've done,
awesome.
yeah. So, it's less, being booked and more kind of storing up for the future. So doing more
Yeah.
auditions and doing more reaching out.
Do you ever think it's a good idea to leave your job without having a solid plan for entrepreneurship in place? Or do you think that in order to be a true entrepreneur, you have to assume the risk and just leap?
I think that every situation is different. So both my husband and I have different stories. He left his job. It's been around 5 years ago now, and he did not have a plan. I mean, we kind of did in our heads some, but it wasn't well laid out. It was kind of like, well, Carrie's working still, so we can live off of her salary for a year or two and we'll be fine. So Derek, my husband, will come home and we'll figure it out as we go. And that's kind of what we did. So if you have that kind of support system and that kind of uh, the ability to make a decision like that, I'm not going to be mad at you if you do something like that. For me, it was a little bit different. Of course, I did mine on the side first, and we kind of waited till it was going before I quit my corporate job. So I think that there are circumstances when both can be smart, but I do think it should be, it should be premeditated. You should be wise about it either way, because it can be easy to just be like, oh, I'm so upset. I'm so unfulfilled in my job. I'm just going to quit. And you don't want to make a decision that you're going to regret just off of emotion. So do have some kind of plan, but I think that it's different for everybody as far as where on that spectrum of, backup plan or preparedness that you are when you take that plunge.
Yeah, I think phasing out of your current situation and phasing into your new situation is probably a good idea, considering if you just up and leave, then, you don't know what's going to happen. You could be taking a huge risk financially. But again, like you said, if you have that backing, if you have that support already saved up for you, then you can take that leap. It's different for everyone, I think.
Yeah, and starting a business is hard, and I think that it can be easy to listen to other people who are in that spot that you want to be in, and then you just get these, you just get so excited and you want to be there so bad, and you kind of let the emotions get the best of you, and you're just, well, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to quit and go. And there's a lot to be said about being enthusiastic and being, committed, but there does have to be like a solid plan under there, because running a business is hard, and that high of emotions only lasts so long. And once you've gone a month or two and you don't have any income, then that's not going to be a good situation.
Yeah, it's ramen noodle time, and things start getting scary.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what is some advice that you have for anyone wanting to get started in the voiceover world, and who exactly is voiceover for?
Yeah, so as far as advice on getting started, I love talking about getting started because, voiceover obviously changed my life, changed my family's life. I think it's an amazing industry. And if you are interested in it, I absolutely want you to get into it because it's so awesome. But it's one of those industries where I think a lot of people on the outside think, wait a second, you get in your closet and you talk into a microphone and then you just get paid tons of money. I mean, not everybody, their jobs vary, of course, and range of how much you get paid. But so what I like to emphasize is that it's a skill just like any other profession. It does take training, and there are nuances to it. So it's not just like, well, let me buy the equipment and I'm going to do it. So my advice to you, to get back to the advice, is get a coach or get some training. Do something to where you've got someone that you can, look to for advice, or someone who can at least tell you the ins and outs of how to edit your audition, so you're making sure that you're not even wasting your time, submitting them. Because there are little things, I mean, there are little things that you can change that are going to make the difference between, oh, I'm not even going to consider that person, and, yes, this sounds like a professionally recorded voiceover.
Mm-hmm.
So, have some kind of input, and don't just think that you can, because someone told you have a nice voice once, that you can go and all of a sudden become a full-time voice actor. Like, there's more to it than that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more to it. But it's a good thing to at least jump into let me change that. It's a good thing to try out. If you think that you want to, you would be good at it, or you think that it's something that you would like to do, then I would say just start recording yourself and start seeing how you sound, because that's kind of what I was doing. I was recording programs and videos for my audience, and people kept coming to me and saying, okay, you sound super professional. I feel like you need to do something with this. And I'm like, okay, I've considered this in the past, because like I said, I did that TV show voiceover, and I never really considered it professionally though. And then I started thinking, okay, how can I use this? Because obviously this is something I like to do. I have an acting background anyway, and I think it would really complement my creativity. So I just decided to explore it and start researching it and seeing what I could learn about it. And I think that's really one of the first steps someone should do is just start learning as much as you can.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And you would think I was crazy if you would have seen me after I had my first was a consultation that I got from Allison Steele, my very first call with her, where she just exploded on me with voiceover information, just gave me tons of info. I took tons of notes. And after that, I just dug into every single piece of voiceover, anything that I could find. I read books, I listened to podcasts, I went to websites, I, attended webinars just to immerse myself in that world. So I totally agree with what you're saying. I think that recording yourself, like you said, and of course I had done a lot of recording myself with podcasts and things like that, but then also just devouring every bit of information that you can. And once you do that, that's also a good indicator to you. Once you've taken in all that information, if you're still interested and it still sounds good to you, then that's a good sign that it's something that you could, like you said, continue to work towards, and recording yourself and kind of look to those next steps after that.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm curious to know, what is the weirdest voiceover you've ever performed, or, a job that you've had that you've done for VO?
Okay, so there are a couple. Actually, it's funny. Okay, so I thought of three right off the bat, and they're all three ones where I did British accents. And so this first one was it the weirdest? It's probably the weirdest because it's the only cartoon I've ever done. And it was I was supposed to be this semi-British supermodel, and it was kind of a parody cartoon type thing. And so one of the episodes was about these superstars who'd gotten butt injections.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so like Botox for your butt. And so that was fun. I got to do that character. And then there was one where I was just doing this guy he was like a DJ, and he wanted someone to announce his podcast. And so he had these weird lyrical semi poetry things that he wanted just to be like overlaid over his music, and some of them he wanted in an accent. So I was just like saying these weird phrases of like, music is everything, just really I don't know, and he would just like lay it over the music.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
And then the third one is another British accent I did, and this was for an American company. I thought the British accent was awful, but a lot of Americans can't tell the difference, so they were just like, yeah, this is great. And I kind of feel bad that I even gave that to them, but they liked it, and that's what counts.
Oh my gosh, that's great. I have had requests for British accents, but I tell them no, because I'm so worried that someone somewhere will hear that and say, that is not a real British accent.
I'm sure it's happened to me. Luckily, on the cartoon, they said they wanted it semi-British. They were like, we want we want to be able to tell she's European, but not be able to tell where she's from. So I just made something up.
Oh my gosh, semi-British. That's pretty funny.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I have just had a plethora of weird requests throughout my short VO career, and it's just been bizarre for me. I have a lot of podcast intros and outros that I do too, which is, it's really fun. I mean, the creativity that you get to express, and, you can really take it like you're an actor, and that's what you are. And you can explore the script and give it your own emotion, and, interpret things in the way that you feel like you should. I mean, and a lot of it, I don't get a ton of direction from the clients. They just send me the script and they say, here you go. And I'm like, okay, so here's what I think I should do with this character. And I just do it. And then most often they come back and say, oh my God, you totally nailed that. And they're usually pretty surprised. But tell me about a situation where you've just not been able to please a client, or that you haven't been able to deliver on what they asked you to do.
Yeah, so I mentioned that my third job ever was a national radio campaign, which is, I mean, if that's not, what is it, trial by fire?
Yeah, that's
I don't know what it is. So
awesome.
just thrown into the situation, and I, called my coach just frantic, like, what do I do? They're sending me to a recording studio. I have no idea. And she told me all of the basics, make sure you're there, make sure you're on time. Um, be this far from your microphone, don't touch your microphone, all of those things that I never would have known not to do if it wasn't for her kind of walking me through it. And one of the things that I'm so glad that she coached me on was when you're in that situation and you're being directed live, which is so nerve-wracking because you see people talking about your performance, but you can't hear what they're saying most of the time. And they're coming back at you saying, try this, do this different. And one of the things she taught me was don't try to get your affirmation from your client. Don't be too concerned with, don't take it personally when they're saying those things because it's your job to provide them a service. You got hired because you are capable, so be confident. And so that was definitely a situation where had I not had that advice, it could have destroyed me, and especially because I'm someone who thrives on affirmation from other people. So I was just really grateful to have that coaching from her where it didn't destroy me. So I don't necessarily have the example of, man, I couldn't nail it and it was awful. It was just, maybe it took 60 takes, but the whole time it was like, that's okay. We're working together. They're rooting for me. They want me to succeed because it's their project and I'm, the service, I'm here to do what they want. So if they tell me to go faster, even though I think it should be slower, I'm going to go faster and do it happily, so.
Right.
And it did take a lot of takes to get, especially those first few jobs done. But a lot of it, too, is because they were trying to find what they wanted also. So it wasn't just like, well, Carrie's not nailing what we want. They were, it was kind of like they didn't know what they wanted till they heard it. So it kind of gave me that rein to go and just do all kinds of different things and kind of see what stuck.
I find that that's so often the case with many clients, even in web design and graphic design. They don't really know what they want until they see something they don't want or hear in your case. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely see that happens a lot. I want to know, do you go to the studio a lot or are you more of an at-home studio?
I definitely do most of my work at home, but I have a really good relationship with a local studio where they call me, at least once a month, sometimes more, to do some in-studio reads. And then if I ever get, spots booked through an agent or something like that, sometimes they'll want to book the studio. But, I'm in my little home studio right now, and it sounds fine. I recorded, the national spots that I emailed about. Those were from my home studio. So like you said, it's so easy to get a quality studio sound from your home that it's not necessary to leave a lot. But I still go every once in a while, and I think it's good to kind of keep that relationship. But yeah, definitely the majority of my work is from home.
So you mentioned an agent. So you have an agent now. What does it take to get an agent? And if somebody's actually looking to, propel their voiceover business, what do they need to do?
Yeah, so to get an agent, really all you need is a really good demo. And so if you've got that demo and you've got a sound that's in demand and the spots on your demo are, sounds that an agency could hear represented and, spots that are playing now, so it's kind of a modern sound that is, maybe progressive or just in demand right now, then they'll put you on their roster just from your demo. So that's what I did. After I had been getting lessons for a while, my coach said, okay, I think we're there. I think you're in a spot where we can make you a demo that will represent you well. And she kind of gave me some starting places, and I started reaching out to people and booked a few agents that way.
Awesome. So speaking of a coach and having a demo, you have a program called Voiceover Success Intensive.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I came from the e-learning field, so I made online training, and that was my thing, and I loved it. And the only reason I left was because I wanted to work from home and because voiceover started to take off. And so when I had early success fast in the voiceover industry, and I had people asking me, how did you do it? How did you get into the voiceover world? And so it was kind of a natural step for me to, well, instead of saying it new every time someone asks, I'll just make a course out of it. And if someone asks, you can sign up for my course, and there you go. So I put together this online course, and I actually got my coach, Allison Steele, to come and help. And she's a phenomenal coach, and she teaches the portion on acting and breaking down copy and taking care of your voice and things like that. And it's just been a lot of fun. It's been a cool partnership between the two of us. It's been a way for us to work together other than just her coaching me. And it's also been a way for me to continue my love of e-learning. So I've gotten to, continue to make classes that way, or make online courses that way. And it's been really great. So I've had some people come through it, and people are getting, jobs within a couple weeks of starting the course, which is, really good. When I first did it, I was like, I don't even know if this is going to work. Well, am I a good teacher? Is anyone going to learn anything from this? And so the proof is in the pudding, as they say, and people started booking work and getting, contacts and things like that. And so I thought, well, this seems like a good thing. I think I'm going to keep doing it.
That's awesome. Congratulations. So where can people go to sign up for your program?
So my website is carrieolsenvo.com, and you can just sign up for my newsletter, and I send out, when the course opens. It's not open all the time. I do it in launches. So you can sign up for the newsletter and get updated that way, or even just shoot me an email and say you're interested in the next time that it's open. I can give you details on how to sign up.
Okay. And you offer coaching along with it, or is that in addition to it?
So there are two tiers of the class. One of them is the modules only. So they're pre-recorded modules. You just get access to a website, you log in, and you can see all of the videos. And then there's also a live Q&A that I do monthly so that you can still get some interaction. And then the second tier includes some group coaching. So I don't do one-on-one coaching, but I'll do group workout sessions where it'll be between like 3 or 5 people, and we'll get together and practice reading scripts and coaching each other and taking direction. And so the higher tier of the Voiceover Success Intensive class includes 4 of those group workouts. But then if you want one-on-one, I absolutely recommend my coach, Allison Steele. She's lovely, and she does one-on-one coaching via Skype.
Awesome. Yeah, I think practicing script reading is a really important thing when you're learning voiceover work, and when you're just getting started out, and practicing as many characters and voices to see what you're comfortable with and what your range is. I think it'll give you a good idea of what you're capable of doing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things, is getting out there and, not just having an open mind. And I think that's one of the cool things about pay-to-play sites. And I know that there are so many pros and cons about pay-to-play sites and controversies and things, but one thing that they do really well is provide a variety of different types of jobs. So if you do happen to be on one, you'll get jobs for real commercials, jobs for, a student's video that they're submitting to school. You'll get jobs for, nonprofits and explainer videos, and just a broad variety. So you get to try your hand or try your voice at all kinds of different things and kind of see what you like and see what sticks.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've done a range of podcast intro, outros to explainer videos I do a lot of on hold messages, which is really interesting. I feel like that's the majority of what I do is, you call any business in the US and that's me.
That's awesome. Well, that's a cool niche to get into.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that happened. So what would you say is your biggest challenge being an entrepreneur, or your biggest challenge being a voiceover artist?
So my biggest challenge being an entrepreneur is for sure just organization, kind of like what I talked about earlier, and just having everything come at me at once. And with voiceover is my main thing, but I also have this class going, and I have students in the class that are depending on me, and so I want to make sure I'm doing a good job for them. And so it's just a lot of, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and so I think that's the hardest thing, is being a one-person show. And it sounds like you're this way too, as far as being tech savvy and being able to do the voiceover work, run a business, and when you can do a lot of things, you tend to hire them out less, because, well, I could hire someone to build my website, or I could just do it, or I could hire someone to do this, or I could just do it. And I find myself in that spot constantly, again, coming from a technology background. I just do it all myself, and it's probably not the wisest thing to do.
Yeah, it's, I've learned that delegating is a good thing, but it's hard to let go of that when you feel like, oh, I can do it and I'll probably do it better. And so, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So I definitely know a lot technically. And just because of that, I'm like, okay, I can learn all of this. And if I don't know how to do it, I'll teach myself how to do it, because why would I have anybody else help me? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's hard to let go of sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned that it's hard for you to, it's challenging, we'll say, for you to master organization. And I
Mhm.
think that's a big one with a lot of entrepreneurs, or, entrepreneurs that are just starting out. So what is, like, do you have a routine with your daily life and your business, or do you just kind of take it as it comes at you?
Yeah, so it's actually really neat. We're what we've just started doing this week, actually, my husband and I, is he is really, really good at outreach and, um, kind of managing my schedule. So I kind of gave that to him this past week, and it wasn't like, hey, will you do? It kind of just happened naturally, where he's a pretty prominent guy in a lot of small business circles, and so when I started doing my voiceover stuff, he was able to reach out to a lot of people and get me connections because he's pretty well connected, and so that kind of happened naturally, where he's kind of managing my schedule a little bit more, so that's really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And then we have this giant chalkboard wall that it's so great for me to the night before write everything out that I need to do the next day. And it's so, archaic, right? Because I've got an iPhone and we've got all kinds of things that I could just program everything into, but it's helpful for me to see it laid out. So I write out everything, and then as I do them, I mark them off. And that's really helpful just to see everything all at once.
Oh my God. Can I just say I'm super jealous right now? I've been wanting something where I can just write on my wall. And I've been thinking, like, if I had a giant wall that was a dry erase wall, I would be in heaven.
Oh my gosh, it would change your life.
Yes, I am really jealous. So did you paint your wall with chalkboard paint, or how did this happen?
It happened by fate because we moved into a new place and the people before us had painted the wall with chalkboard paint. So I
Oh
was
my
like, this
God.
is heaven. It just worked out perfectly. So yeah, go get some chalkboard paint or,
Yeah.
find a giant dry erase board on Craigslist and it'll change your life.
It really will. I've been dreaming about it for a while. So I'm definitely the type of person that has to write things out. And even though I
Hmm.
use, Asana and Outlook and all these different calendar programs, I still find that I'm writing things down on paper and still using my miniature dry erase board. I need to have it in front of me. I'm just that type of person that has to be able to look at it, because if I close it down and it's out of sight, it's completely out of my mind.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the apps just don't work for me.
Yeah, there's definitely something special about just physically being able to, write something down and see it out in front of you. And I know that's old school, and especially for two people who were like
So tech.
self-proclaimed techno. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still use my iPhone, for things, but it just really is helpful to, maybe it's just the um, therapeutic of, just writing it down. Maybe that's just the thing
Hmm.
that's helpful. But
I
either
really
way.
like, I get something really special out of highlighting something. That's my way of
Mhm.
crossing it off. And I'm like, yeah, I highlighted you. And I just feel really
Yeah.
good about it. So yeah, it's kind of my weird thing. But yeah, organization is such a big deal with, running your own business. And if you're a solopreneur, it is hard to stay organized. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. And when you really get into it with marketing and online and running programs, managing clients, it can turn into crazyville really quickly.
Absolutely. It's like a circus.
Yes. So, what are your professional VO goals for the rest of this year?
Yeah, so I wanted to book another national campaign this year, and I mentioned that happened this month, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to do more, and this, it was 3 spots, so that's, is it a campaign? It's kind of a stretch, um, but it still is. It's just a small campaign, so it'd be nice to have a longer one and kind of get one of those the voice of things.
Hmm.
So I would love to get, maybe I could be, the voice of what, like,
You could be the next Geico, like the next
yeah,
Gecko, right?
There you go. Absolutely.
or the
The
next
voice of
Aflac.
Geico.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
would be awesome.
that would be awesome. So that's definitely a goal for voiceover. And then just to keep getting consistent work. I love, like I mentioned, getting work from my personal outreach. So finding other niches that I want to get into and reaching out to those companies and those decision makers. And I just feel like I have more control over my business that way, because you know how it is when you're constantly auditioning and waiting to get the yes from someone else. And so I love the idea of being able to go in and kind of make my own fate, and instead of waiting for someone to say yes, you're good enough, go out and just find my own clients. And it feels like I have more control that way. So just continuing to do that this year.
I love that. I love that you have that creative marketing proactive ness to you to go out and ask for it and to put yourself in front of those decision makers, because a lot of people think, oh well, I auditioned and that's it. I just have to wait and see. But really there's a lot you can do. Like you said, writing letters and reaching out and developing relationships like you did with Disney, and it can actually turn into a real business relationship.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I think is so encouraging about not just voiceover, but entrepreneurship in general. It is, so much of it is you're only limited by how much work you're willing to do. So it's like you said, there might be someone who's done, 50 auditions and hasn't gotten any bites yet and thinks, well, I must not be good, I'm just going to quit. Well, or you could, half that time that you spend auditioning, spend 50% of the time just doing your own outreach and hustling. And like the fact of the matter is, and this, whether this is good or bad, I don't know, you could be a mediocre voice actor, but if you have amazing marketing skills, you're going to get hired, and probably more than someone who's good and doesn't market themselves at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's all about being top of mind and about business relationships. So if there's a company who needs a voice actor and you're really easy to work with and you're staying in contact with them all the time, they're just going to call you up because they think voice actor and you're going to come to mind before someone else who maybe is way better than you but doesn't have any marketing skills.
Yeah, I find that's true with so many, almost every industry, really.
Yeah.
No matter what niche you're in, you really have to put yourself out there and develop those relationships on your own and not wait for the people to come knocking on your door, because they're not going to if you're just going to sit
Yeah.
there and wait.
Well, that's kind of like where things are going with books, people self-publishing their books now too, because it used to be, well, once I get published by a traditional publisher, then my life will be easy and I'll get tons of money and everything will be great. But now it's like, no, you won't even get published unless you've already got a platform, unless you've done the work yourself of building your audience and a fan base. So even to be an author, you have to be a business person first. And like you said, I think that's just kind of where it's going with most, jobs these days.
Exactly. So what would you be doing if you weren't an entrepreneur?
I would be back at my job doing e-learning. It was my it's the best job I've ever had. So I actually really loved it. The worst part was just the commute and then having to be away from my family. So if it wasn't for those things, if they would have let me work from home, I probably would never even have sought out voice acting, which is kind of a blessing, because at the time I actually put in a formal proposal like, hey, could I work from home since my job is online anyway? I'm doing online training. And, they were great about it, but they didn't want to let me work from home as much as I wanted to. And so that no was really hard at the time, but it's actually what led me to get into voiceover. So, I'd probably still be there.
That's pretty interesting. I've actually put in a proposal before for myself in a corporate position for working from home, and then the company moved and I had to work from home because I wasn't relocating with them. But
oh, nice.
so it actually turned out in my favor. But yeah, there's something about working from home that's really great. I mean, you can work in your pajamas if you need to. Not that I recommend it, because then you'll feel really lazy and unproductive. But it happens. And, you can be at home with your family. Like you said, the commute, there's so many benefits to it. And honestly, I think people are more productive working from home than they are in the office, because there's, for me anyway, when I worked in corporate, it was like, gossip time, and not for me. I didn't gossip, but people would waste time just walking around talking, and I'm like, okay, see, I could be at home right now really focused.
And I think it's different for everybody. You know, there are some people who, like I have friends who are engineers and they could never run their own business. They just want to go to work, do their job, do what their boss tells them to do, and then come home and then, you know, they're
Yeah.
on their own time. And that's how they work best, and that's fine. So, you know, some people would go crazy working from home. It just wouldn't work out for them. But it's definitely a good fit for some people. And it sounds like for you and me, we definitely fit into that category. But, you know,
Yeah.
people are everybody's different, and I'm glad, I guess, that there are some people who do well working from the office because that's where most jobs still are. So
Yes, that's true. Carrie, thank you so much for being on the show today.
thanks for having me. It's been so great.
So make sure to go to carrieolsenvo.com to get more information and to find out when her next voiceover success intensive opens up. Thanks for listening to the Boss Lady Generation podcast. If you are serious about pursuing your passion, living a life full of purpose, and following your dreams, then I encourage you to join Boss Lady Generation for free at bossladygeneration.com. Follow your dreams, pursue your passions, and live courageously.